everyone, and welcome back to another episode of CUNY Uncut, where we talk about anything and everything, uncensored, unedited, and uncut. And Happy New Year! It's now 2026, a very exciting year for many CUNY students, including myself. I mean, I'm graduating this spring, and I'm very excited for that, but that means that my time with CUNY Uncut will be coming to an end at the end of the semester. So, if you're interested in sitting in this host seat and talking to more CUNY students and recent alumni about their experiences, look out for an application coming soon. And ringing in the new year is going to be a Gen Z business owner. This senior and Macaulay Honors student at Brooklyn College founded TeenSittersNYC, a childcare agency that trains and certifies teens, connecting them with busy families. A lot of them being CUNY students and families as well. In addition, he's a CUNY BA student majoring in business analytics and data strategy while being a Watson Fellow as well. Without further ado, I would like to give a very warm welcome to Ricky Costas-Hernandez. Ricky, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks, David. Really nice to have me here and looking forward to speaking about my experience and also TeenSittersNYC.
Yeah, so should we start off with the TeenSittersNYC? I mean, you made your own business. Tell me about the process of really getting it up off the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it always starts with an idea, so the idea was that I was a babysitter for a ton of years, and then I was thinking about how I could create that at scale, because a lot of times there's like an informal childcare market in a lot of big cities. New York City is the same. But a lot of times, and there's a lot of competitors in the field. I mean, there's the big name is like Care.com, and there are some other ones, Sitter City, Urban Sitter. So I kind of looked at their business models and what they do, and then thought about how what we could do could be a little bit different. So originally, we were just going to be like a platform that matches people. So we would have like teens and college students on our website, and then they would be matched with families. But like after some reflection, we realized that like that's what the big players already do. So we're not actually giving anything different. So we shifted our model a little bit to become like a full childcare agency. So we employ all of the sitters, and then we can deploy them as needed for families. And that has been a game changer because families are tired of just searching endlessly on these platforms. There are thousands of candidates available, and it can lead to decision fatigue, and then, they don't book anyone. And that's not to take away from Care.com's business model. They've been extremely successful, but this is also just a little pocket of the market that seems to be pretty viable. And yeah, like we're a childcare agency now, and we have 7 sitters on our team. We are, I think, about to grow to 8. We just did a really good interview the other day. And, we really are super dependent on our sitters. Like if without them, we would have no business. They're the ones that are out in our clients' homes. They're the ones that are, working with children every day, which we know has its ups and downs. And yeah, no, it's been really great to have a great team so far.
That's really awesome. And babysitting is so interesting. Why was that the hustle that you decided to go for?
Yeah, I mean, like personally, I did it like in my neighborhood, and it was like a good way to make money. I made a good amount of money doing it, like just personally for families that I knew. And then, yeah, I mean, I think that it's like, especially in this era where everything is AI and technology, like there are certain things that can't really be automated. And one of those is like caregiving. So I think that it's kind of, I mean, everybody thinks their business is future-proof, right? But I think that like caregiving is something that is super important, and also it is mutually beneficial for like the teens and for the families as well, because the teens kind of get to build really good connections with the families as well. And, a lot of times these families are professionals and doing very quite well for themselves, and then opportunities arise. So like recently we had a sitter that didn't, he worked with one of our clients who's like a chief financial officer, and she, mentioned that he would be open to like an internship or something like that. So it's like it's just really rewarding to see that like not only are the families being helped with great care for their children, but also the sitters themselves are being helped with like opportunities and connections and networking. And that's just some of the things that our sitters get. A lot of other like soft skills and things of that nature that they develop, organization and communication, and really the goal is to be mutually beneficial, because as I mentioned, like our whole business is based on our sitters, and we would be nothing without them, for sure.
Awesome. When you first started getting this idea, when was that, and why did you decide, okay, this is the direction that I want to go down?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think that like the idea at first was like I was just going to train like super young teenagers in babysitting only in the Park Slope area. That was like the early days, but that has a lot of issues, right? You're dealing with people that are maybe 13 or 14, and I'm sure there are many wonderful 13 or 14 it's old out there, but I know that like when I was 13 or 14, I wasn't really super reliable. So, you know, the idea shifted. And then, like I said, it became that like platform model where we're just matching. But, you know, I thought about it and it's like, what are we providing better than Care.com or Sitter City or Urban Sitter? Because they all have the same business model for the most part. It's just matching. It does expose us to more risk. That's something that's interesting with our model because they are our employees. So then if something were to happen, we can't claim that we weren't responsible because they are our employees. So that's another reason why these companies operate with just the matching and they don't actually employ any of the babysitters because it insulates them from risk. But, you know, for us, it just makes sense for like our value proposition of like if you need a babysitter, we have a team of 7 and we just go down the line and see how we can get a sitter to help you. And, you know, fortunately, we've been in business for about 3 months. We've served about 15 clients, I would say. And we have about like 40 other interested clients. And we have never had an incident where like a family has come to us and said, I need a babysitter in some crazy arrangement. I mean, we've had a variety of arrangements that they receive childcare support. One of my favorite ones recently is a babysitter like worked with an influencer that like needed care while she was on the influencing site. So that was super cool. Like you never can predict what childcare is going to be needed, and it's a very flexible and versatile model that we have, and they can do everything from like an hour pickup to like an influencer support, or even like I said, like, you know, night care coverage. Like it's very versatile and very flexible in what we can provide with our team to families.
It's so great to see that this business is starting to thrive and really flourish. It's only been on the market for 3 months, but this has been in the works for quite a while, I take it, right? When did you first come up with the idea?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think early college, I would say like 2018 was when I started coming up with the idea. And then after 2018, it kind of hit like a dead period, as happens with everybody that has an idea. You know, you kind of lose faith in it a little bit. And, you know, you maybe question the viability. So that happened. And it kind of, I was really excited working on it, like I would say sophomore year. And then after sophomore year, from like sophomore to junior year, I kind of hit a dead period where I wasn't working on it. I wasn't really believing in it. And then what really changed it was my participation in the CUNY Startups competition. They do one every year, CUNY Clash, and it's designed to help you bring an idea to like a pitch and like develop it into a business. So all credit goes to CUNY Startups there, and they coach you through like developing a pitch deck. I was connected with a wonderful mentor. His name was DK Smith, and he, you know, taught me about pitch decks. He taught me about, you know, how to present your business. He gave me so many valuable insights. And then I, you know, progressed through the rounds, and I ended up making it to the final round for the pitching competition. And it was an in-person competition at one of the Amazon offices in Manhattan. And then, yeah, it was my first time pitching a business. And there was around 20 student teams that were amazing. Everybody came away with like some money. But I was lucky enough to get in the top 3 of the presenters, which was really cool. And that led us to get our seed funding, which was $2,000. The investment has grown since then, but that $2,000 really was what I needed. And most importantly, it was the social proof that this was a viable business model, because after the competition, I had a few people come up to me and just voice their encouragement and belief in the idea. And yeah, like that was wild to hear, because, you know, you everybody thinks their idea is a great idea, you know, until you get it out into the market. But getting that kind of really valuable feedback from our like similar demographics to who would be our sitters and to who would be our clients was amazing. And it gave me all the confidence to go live.
Wow. It must have been nerve-wracking to be presenting for the first time, pitching for the first time, and then so rewarding to see that everybody values your opinion, your idea, and really like giving you the faith to put it out in the market. But I know that once you did that, that wasn't the next. It wasn't just like, okay, let's launch right away. There was a lot of steps in between. What are some of the nitty-gritty things that you have to do to build a business that, especially yours, that people wouldn't necessarily think of right off the bat?
Yeah, great question. I think that like we're at a really cool time where you can really leverage AI very much in building a business. So we are like an AI first company, even though we aren't like AI as a service or tech, you know, a deep tech startup. So really, I mean, I knew nothing when I was first starting the business. So I just used AI to do research and to kind of talk me through what the steps would be to building a business, you know, the LLC, and then also, you know, what the steps could be, how I could incorporate, how I could secure insurance. So I really used AI to kind of build up my knowledge in starting a business, because I really didn't know much about what it takes. And then, throughout as it goes, you get connected with wonderful professionals. I have a wonderful insurance agent that I worked with that kind of broke everything down for me. Like, this is how insurance works. This is how, what I recommend for you to get, which was an amazing experience. And then also, I've worked with numerous lawyers. I worked with a lawyer to create our service agreement that we give parents to sign that like make sure that our sitters stay protected and make sure that our families stay protected. And then also I worked with like another lawyer just to kind of on the employment side, like to make sure that we were meeting all standards for being an employer in New York State, which is quite complicated. And then also another big hurdle that we faced was I wasn't really sure if I wanted to employ the sitters directly or if I wanted to go with an independent contractor model. So that was an area that was like very specific, and that happens quite a bit with companies. I think that for us, the reason that we made the shift to employing them directly as W-2 employees was because you have a lot more control over their performance and their conduct when they are directly employed by you. When they're an independent contractor, you don't have to pay like insurance or workers' comp or anything like that, which is very valuable for some businesses, but you do have limited control over how they operate. So like, for example, Uber and like all the rideshare apps, they operate under the contractor model. And the way that they ensure performance from their employees that are contractors is just with like a really robust feedback mechanism, like with the stars, and you can see the reviews, and then they use that customer feedback as ways to like measure performance, but for us, it really matters that we can correct the performance of our babysitters. If something comes up that like we're like we don't necessarily like how you handle that, we can communicate with them directly and make sure that they have all the resources they need to correct that moving forward. So that was, it's a great question, because I think that a lot of building out a business is just like a series of small struggles, right? Like it's like I was like, okay, so we need insurance. I don't even have personal insurance. I don't really know how insurance works, but really recommend working with professionals and finding great professionals. Like don't settle for the first salesman that you deal with. Like really shop around and see who you feel good with, who you can build a relationship with, who's going to give you the best price for things. Don't always go with the first option. That's something that really helped me and has helped me find like great lawyers. And yeah, like all the support along the way is how you start a business. I used AI, like I said, to kind of get my knowledge up to par. And then I just consulted with professionals that really are experts in this employment law in New York City, in, risk management for us as a business, and then also just insurance. Like we do need insurance. We have a bunch of different types of insurance to just protect everybody.
Wow. To me, that seems very intimidating, this entire process. There's so many different steps. There's so many different aspects of it. And it's really hard to take responsibility for so many employees, when you're still a student yourself going on top of this. What would you advise to CUNY students who are looking to find ways to simplify things if they're looking to start their own business?
I think definitely understand that like however much time you estimate this is going to take it's going to be like half that. It takes so much work to manage people and to start a business, and like every time I close my eyes, the business is on my mind, and you have a lot of other responsibilities that you need to cater to. And my own issue this semester was the business has grown more than I had expected, which is great, but also it has been more demanding of me than I had expected.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to dedicate as much of my effort to academics and things of that nature. Like I got my first C of my life this semester.
Wow.
So it's like, there are ways to manage things, and getting back to your question, but just know that like when you are building a startup or a company, it's going to take 30, 40 plus hours every single week, even if you don't think it is. Like there are a lot of little things, building out the website, speaking with insurance agents, you're just always on and you always have to be ready. And then like just the advice, I guess, for somebody that's interested in starting a business is just get it started, and that's how you learn. Like I feel like a lot of very intelligent people that want to start their businesses, they are always over optimizing, and they get like, you always want to like make sure everything is perfect, but really the only way that you learn is if you get it out there, you start getting customer feedback, you start learning things on your own. So that's how I learned everything. I mean, I remember when I was talking to my first clients, like I had no confidence. Like I was just like, oh, like, like our hourly rate is, 30, or no, I was like, our hourly rate is 30 to 35. Like, is that something you'd be willing to pay? Like, I know it's a lot, like terrible sales practices, but I was just getting started out. And then now you get reps over time. Like I've spoken to, I don't know, I would say 30 clients now, like
wow,
3 months
wonderful.
and you really get more reps, and you learn how to, communicate well with people, meet them halfway, and, kind of be a little bit more assertive with prices, where it's like this is our price, this is why this is our price, and you can give rationale, and that's the hardest part. I think the other thing that I would say for founders is really, I feel like this is like super easy to build a business right now. Not to say that it's ever easy, but it's easier than ever before because of the use of AI. And also there are so many amazing like software as a service platforms out there that we use. And just like there are so many other software out there that you can use and that you should rely on, because otherwise it's all on you.
Yeah, there's resources out there,
for sure.
Flat out. And I think that for a lot of CUNY students, they can also rely on their networks and who they know, especially at their schools. I'm sure that you did that, starting up your own business and finding yourself different types of opportunities. I actually wanted to talk about some of those opportunities. I know that you're a Watson Fellow, and personally, I don't know a lot about that program and what that fellowship is like, but I'm sure that you can say a little bit more.
Yeah, the Watson Fellowship is an amazing program. I would say it really changed my life, and it is open to all CUNY students. It's a program for students enrolled in New York City schools. So it's CUNY, and then it's also a few other partner colleges like St. John's and a few others that aren't within the CUNY system. But the way that it works is you apply either in your freshman or sophomore year, and you get access to a 3-year support period where they help you get 3 internships each summer.
Awesome.
They help you get, upskill, explore your future career, explore future career paths. I really think, and I'm biased, but I think it's the best program for CUNY students out there. And I was really lucky to get in as a freshman, and that led me to have 3 internships. So the first internship was at an international education, a nonprofit called the Institute of International Education. That was a great experience. It was my first internship ever.
Wow.
I had only ever babysat before that. So
it's quite a jump, huh?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But, like I say, transferable skills are always there, like things that you learn in babysitting and in your other jobs. I was a lifeguard, I was a babysitter. And then, Watson was really the springboard to get my first internship. And then another great component of the Watson program is they really prioritize getting outside of your comfort zone culturally and like personally. So they emphasize a lot of international and like domestic travel. So the first internship is generally domestic. I'm sorry, the first internship is in New York. And the second internship is generally domestic, so another state. And then the third internship is generally abroad, like at another country. So I had a wonderful abroad experience through Watson, which was with another nonprofit, a nutrition nonprofit called the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, and they're headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. And Watson Watson funded me and gave me all the support I needed to go out of the country for the first time, because I had never been outside of the country.
Whoa.
And then like through Watson, I was able to go to 3 countries after having been to none. So that was just such a transformative experience. And yeah, I mean, like I'm always open to talk to students that are interested in the Watson Fellowship. I have done like some mock interviews and stuff like that for interested students, and a few of them have gotten in. So anybody interested in the Watson Fellowship can reach out to me, and I would love to talk to them and kind of give them mock interviews and just give them the best position to succeed in their application.
Yeah, what were some of those internships like? I'm sure they must have been insane. I mean, going to another country for an internship, I feel like that's insane. What was that like for you?
It was a very interesting experience. Like definitely there are moments where you're like, wow, like, because in Switzerland, in Geneva, the primary language is French, because it's so close to France.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't speak French. I speak Spanish, so I was able to get by a little bit, but it's brand new. I mean, it just opens your mind to the possibilities. Everything is different, like from infrastructure, traffic lights, like public transportation, like everything is different, and you just have to adapt and evolve. And there were tough days. There were days where I was like, I'm homesick. Why does everything have to be different? Like, why can't anybody speak English? But I grew so much from that summer, like, I don't know. I feel like I became a lot more adaptable and just able to go with the flow and things of that nature. So, and that's the power of the Watson Fellowship, and that's why they prioritize the international experiences and the travel and getting out of your comfort zone. So it was overall an amazing experience.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that you changed majors as well. You're a CUNY BA student now, which is creating your own major, which I think is wonderful and amazing. But I know that, some of these internships and different opportunities that you've had kind of shaped where you kind of wanted to go with the rest of your academic career. I mean, you're graduating in the spring as well.
Yes.
Tell me about your most recent internship that you had this past summer.
Yeah, so for my third Watson internship, I went and interned at a company called Accenture in San Francisco, which was super cool because I have my major right now, David mentioned that it changed a couple of times, but what I have right now is it's called Business Analytics and Data Strategy, and it's all about like how we can use data to drive like data-driven decisions, and it's really helped me in my business as a little bit of an aside. But this summer, the internship with Accenture, they're a technology consulting company, and they help other companies like modernize their technology, implement AI, and improve how they use technology. So I was staffed on a really cool client, and I got to work on a AI platform implementation at like a top company where we were implementing a software that would be like almost like a people management software. So if people were interested in like if people within the same company, let's say like a software engineer, would be interested in trying a new position, the company wanted to put their own employees in the position to grow within the company and not have to leave to try something new. So this software was something that facilitated it. And yeah, it was an amazing experience. I mean, San Francisco is arguably the startup capital. So I got to meet a lot of really cool people that are working on their own companies or are either interning at companies. And it's just such a cool ecosystem for entrepreneurship. And Accenture, of course, is a technology company, so just the exposure was exceptional, and it really prepared me to launch this business. I really think it did, and I even got to participate in like a pitch competition at Accenture that they did, which was another really cool experience of pitching the company. And yeah, I mean, the internship was amazing, and yeah, being in San Francisco was also cool. It's the startup capital of the world, arguably. So, and especially a lot of deep tech startups like AI and computer vision and things of that nature come out of San Francisco. So very cool experience.
Well, that seems really cool. I mean, listen, I'm not going to send any biases towards San Francisco because I'm New York through and through. But I did want to bring it back to the city and teen sitters. And I wanted to ask about expansion and kind of how you wanted to move going forward. I know that you're graduating soon as well.
That's a great question. I do plan to continue to work on it and build in the momentum that we've built. I think that expanding to new networks and new clients is really important to us. We're primarily based in Brooklyn right now. Most of our families are Brooklyn based. We recently had our first client in Manhattan, which was excellent for us, which was kind of breaking into a new market. So we are seeking to break into other boroughs. Right now, we're primarily based in Brooklyn. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to be moving to San Francisco after graduation, so it's going to pose a new level of challenges.
I just said no biases towards San Francisco. So are you going to work for Accenture then?
Yeah, yes. I'm going to be working full-time at Accenture in San Francisco, and it's going to be, like I said, challenges, right? There's going to be a time difference, but, I'm lucky to be young and to have the energy and excitement to work on, a 9 to 5, and then also 5 to 9, I'll be working on this. So I'm excited for this next chapter. I think that it's going to be a little bit difficult because I am going to be working a full-time job for the first time. And I also am going to be, in 2,000 miles away in San Francisco. Yeah. But I do plan to continue to run it. And a lot of the systems that we have built are able to be maintained from San Francisco. I'm not going to have a problem doing that. So yeah, like we'll see. It's going to be an adventure. And then in terms of expansion, I mean, I would love to expand to other cities. I mean, right now we're in New York, and we'll maximize New York as much as we can. It's a big market, and we're not even close to tapping into it. So definitely New York first, but I would love to expand and get to other cities and potentially San Francisco since I'm going to be out there.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
That'd be really awesome. What ways are you looking to implement CUNY in your business model?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that the CUNY's always has very talented students that are always looking for like a side hustle while they're in their classes. A lot of our students are putting themselves through school, and they need, some income as well. So I really see CUNY as a great pipeline for our business. We employ, like you said earlier in the interview, we employ about 5 CUNY students right now on our team of our 7. So we really already rely on the pipeline, exceedingly so. And we would love to continue to use, to employ CUNY students. And we find, our students are quite happy with the role because it's extremely flexible. It's very gig based. So essentially we just post like, are you available for this job? And then they either say yes or they say no. And they have a lot of flexibility and autonomy over if they want a job or not. Sometimes we do try to sweeten the pot if like, there's a job that we really want people to take, so we may like increase compensation a little bit or something like that. But for the most part, everybody has been taking up the jobs and are excited about the opportunities. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll speak a little bit more about this later, but we're always hiring on like a rolling basis. And I'm sure that my website will be linked. And if any students are interested in applying to become one of our sitters at TeenSittersNYC, you can apply on our careers page. We have a button at the bottom of our careers page that you can click and complete an application to join our team. And we're looking forward to reviewing your applications, and we would love to continue to rely on CUNY as a pipeline for our sitters.
Yeah, this seems like the perfect CUNY gig, like
sure.
Something flexible hours to work with your classes, because I know that people have classes at all times a day.
Absolutely.
What are you really looking for with the types of sitters that you want?
Yeah, I mean, like we generally look for people that have some form of childcare experience previously, because that is very critical for this job. It's quite relevant. But, childcare experience looks like many different things. I mean, we have people on our team. One of our sitters, he was like a soccer referee for children, and that was his relevant experience. We have somebody that was a camp counselor. We have a couple that were camp counselors. And then we also, of course, have people that have previous babysitting experience. So I think that, like, it's very versatile. Our goal is never to eliminate people. It's always to see how we can if people are, can join our team and can contribute to our values. So definitely looking for anybody that has childcare experience. And, we'd love to review the application and make a decision on if you could, join the team.
Yeah, and something that I really appreciate about your business that not a lot of other childcare businesses that I've seen is you provide as well. Once people are on the team, can you talk about what you provide for those hirees?
Yeah, great question. So we try to support our employees because we know that they're our entire business model. I think that, so of course we provide like everything that is required as an employer for employees. So things like workers' compensation, disability paid family leave, everything like that that's required. But also, we also fund our sitters to get CPR and basic life support certifications, which are very important, even just for outside of the work that they do with children in our company, even just for like in everyday life, like being able to have take life-saving action is very important. So we cover the cost of the CPR certification for our employees, and we also pay them for the time it takes to complete the test and the training. So we really just try to lead with generosity for our sitters because, they are our entire business model and we would be nothing without them. So we do try to take care of our people.
Wow, that's really commendable, and that's amazing that you do that for your sitters, thinking of them first and thinking of the families, because that's really what this is about at the end of the day. Last question I got for you is, what would you advise CUNY students who are looking to start their own business? How should they try and get started?
That's a good question. I think you should think about what in your life, the problem that you are most equipped to solve for people in your life. Everybody has interests and has experiences and history that have led them to be exposed to problems that are important to them. Like for me, I was a babysitter and I made a good amount of money doing that, and it was very valuable. And I was like, I think that this is the problem that I'm most optimized to solve, So everybody has their own story and their own thing that they think that they could solve. If you have a problem that is important to you, that's what business is. You solve problems for other people, and if you solve them well, then people, you're expendable. I mean, you're inexpendable. People,
there you go.
People really want to, they need to use you. So that's my advice. Think about the problem that you have in your life or that is felt by your family or your friends, something that you think you are equipped to solve. And then you just need to do research and think about, is this really a problem or is it just a problem in my little network? Because you don't want to build a whole business for something that is not needed by a lot of people outside of your immediate network. Mm-hmm. So definitely you need to look into that and validate the market and see that there's demand. But yeah, find a problem, validate demand, and then you're going to learn along the way how you can solve that problem. I mean, it's evolved for us, right? We have talked to clients and we've found that they really need somebody that can say, we will send you a sitter that is CPR certified and already vetted, and you don't have to endlessly scroll through a website and find sitters and interview them. We'll schedule the interviews, we'll do everything like that for you, and we'll support you. And yeah, that was our problem that we solved, and we're finding it to be pretty lucrative.
Well, Ricky, you've been doing a wonderful job with TeenSittersNYC. I commend you for all the work that you're doing, and I wish you the best of luck with your business and once you graduate as well, move into San Francisco.
Thank you, Dave. It's so nice to be here, and yeah, this is amazing studio. Thank you all for having me.
Of course. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to check out CUNY Uncut on social media, and make sure to download the CUNY TV app. And as always, I'm your host, David Horn, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.